Get obliviously strong girl in. Oh, fuck it. She's not in the new one. She's replaced by this guy who I honestly don't care for. Once again, he's this generic old drunk bastard who doesn't seem to care about his job, but he's extremely perceptive, and every time he talks, I just wish the dynamic from the original show was back again. The relationship between Meryl and Millie was a lot more fun than the typical rookie-senior shtick that's in the new anime. And then there's Vash. On a surface level, Vash seems the most similar to how he was in the original anime, but there are some small differences in how he reacts to certain situations that characterizes him differently. The first scene to point to is the very first scene of the first anime, where Vash finds himself face to face with this deranged tumor trying to kill him. Without hesitation, he raises his gun in order to defend himself as if he's already used to the situation. A similar confrontation happens in the new anime, but instead Vash tries to talk the person trying to kill him out of dueling him before the fight starts proper. In the new anime, Vash comes off as a lot more inexperienced, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, since the only way he could have gotten as good as he is at dodging bullets and handling opponents without killing them is if he's had to deal with these situations all the time. In his backstory, he was shown to be a sheltered kid, one who wasn't particularly remarkable in any way, so he could only have gotten his skills from the numerous shootouts happening all over this desert planet. I'm saying this because I don't think the anime intentionally tried to make Vash look inexperienced. It just comes off that way because of how weird this interaction between the two is. At this moment, there isn't a lot of consistency between how he acts and what he is, which signals to me that the writers are being too wishy-washy with how they want to portray this character. The second scene to make note of is this part of Vash firing his gun, only to realize he doesn't have any bullets. In the original anime, he pulls the trigger a couple of times and then immediately comes under fire. He dodges all of the bullets and hides in order to split up their group so that he can pick them off one by one and steal their bullets. A similar scene happens in the new anime. Before the duel starts, this guy throws his gun in Vash's direction. At least that's what it looks like because of perspective and how the camera is positioned, and I promise you need to remember this because this is really important. And pulls out this huge gun, which he proceeds to use to rain down a hail of bullets on the town they're currently in. I don't know why he did this because up until this point, there's been nothing in his behavior to suggest that he was insane enough to do something that would probably kill him, and combined with the fact that he was specifically hunting Vash for the huge bounty of money on his head, it doubly doesn't make sense for him to do this because that money probably wouldn't be too helpful to a corpse. What I'm trying to say here is that this feels like a cheap story beat written into the plot purely to heighten the tension and stakes of the situation because there isn't much incentive for this character to do something like this. That aside, Vash, like the Vash from the original anime, readies his gun in a scene that mirrors the original anime as he also realizes he has a bullet. Here's how he reacts. Again, on a surface level, this is something that seems completely in character for Vash to do, and when I first saw this scene out of context in the trailer, I could see that. I knew that was part of his personality, but at the same time, something about his reaction rubbed me the wrong way. And after watching the actual episode, I now know why I felt that way. Yes, he's a big, goofy idiot who seems to bumble his way through the situations he gets himself into, but Vash is also really competent. When facing a crisis as big as this, I don't think he would be standing around panicking for this long. And he may ask, well, what else can he do? Without any solution, freaking out seems like a pretty understandable response. And that would be true if there wasn't an easy solution right in front of him. The gun that this guy threw away is probably right next to Vash at this point in the conflict. He could pick that up and do what he was going to do if he had any ammo. And as you saw earlier in this video, he even does something similar to that in the original anime. And I don't want to say the original Vash is better because he's a more competent character. I mean, perceived competence is actually a major factor in making the character more likable, but the reason why I don't really like the new Vash isn't because he's inexperienced compared to the original, it's because the writer didn't make his inexperience feel like an intentional character trait of his. It's more like they're trying to overly emphasize one aspect of his personality in each of these scenes, and it just coincidentally casts him in that kind of light. How am I supposed to get behind this subtle but very present difference in the protagonist if the people behind the show never intended for that difference to exist in the first place? The way that the characters are represented isn't my only problem with the show. Aside from that, I've noticed some issues with storyboarding, and to show exactly what I'm talking about, we need to go back to the scene of Vash realizing he's out of ammo. To summarize, Meryl gets a bullet from one of the residents in town and throws it up to Vash. Once he gets the bullet, he does the same thing he did the first time, aiming his gun at the rain of bullets quickly descending. But then his gun gets shot by the guy he was dueling, so then he knocks him out and everything is fine, right? He can finally do what he was always planning to do, only he runs away from the spot he was standing in, breaks a rock off from the ground, and tosses it up and shoots the bullet he has. This entire sequence is just sloppy because from the very beginning, the audience is given a visual indicator of what Vash is aiming for, only for him to suddenly change what he was doing initially to add in this random element that we didn't even know he needed. And once we see this final step in this strange order of events, everything that comes before is suddenly rendered pointless because why did he do all of this? If he needed that rock the whole time, what was he thinking in this moment where he very clearly had a plan to deal with the impending doom fast approaching him? Was the rock pointless? Did he do that at the end for style points? The way the scene progresses just doesn't make sense, and the only reason as to why Vash would have to take this extra step is because the animators wanted to end the sequence with him doing something that felt more cinematic and looked cooler than just shooting his gun. But because of that, they made the scene way sloppier than it should have been, and all for something that could have been achieved in several other ways, like just framing the act of shooting a gun in a more interesting way. Those are the big problems with the scene, so here are some minor things about it that personally forced me to rewind the video in order to understand what was happening, but they're not really a problem because honestly I think my dumbass just wasn't paying attention enough to recognize what was happening. The first is when Vash raises his gun the second time and gets shot at. I thought at this point he had fired his gun here instead, and the problem was taken care of in this moment. So it was weird when I saw him pick up the rock and shoot another bullet that he wasn't supposed to have. Watching it again, I feel like there was enough visual feedback to give the show a pass on that one. I made it sound like I had multiple things to say here, but that was actually the only one. So overall, the new Trigun anime is, on its own merits, a decent watch. However, I personally do not agree with many of the portrayals of its characters, and the storyboarding was a little awkward in some places. But overall, it does work as a story. That's all I have to say, and I'll be going now.